On June 25th, the State House passed House Bill 790, the General Appropriations portion of the state budget package, and sent it to the State Senate for consideration. The bill passed with bipartisan support. It also included negative votes on both sides of the aisle. One of the members who voted no is State Representative Mike Jones from York County. The final vote, Representative, was 140 to 62. And let's talk about some of the reasons why you chose to vote no on this portion of the budget. And I want you to explain what TABOR is and how that relates to the state spending and the state budget altogether.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. First of all, let me say two quick things. It wasn't easy voting against leadership because I truly do hold our leadership in high regard. I think Brian Cutler, Stan Saylor, Speaker Turzai truly did a very good job here in many regards. The biggest reason was spending. Which I just think is excessive, and it ties to TABOR, which you were talking about. So TABOR is basically inflation adjusted for population. So what some of us wanted to see, actually a number of us wanted to see, not everybody necessarily voted no, like I did, was to tie spending to TABOR or something very close to that, which would be about 2.12%. Unfortunately, this budget spends almost basically double that amount. So the spending was just too much. And there's a couple other things I didn't like about it either.
Let's talk about some of those. The revenue numbers, when they come in at the end of the fiscal year, are more than likely going to be very good, some of the best in recent years. Money was put aside for the rainy day fund for times of emergency and tough economic stretches. Money is going to be put into there. You think more money could have been put into there than what is being proposed?
Yeah, most definitely. So first of all, thanks to President Trump for a great economy here the last couple of years, and despite what some people may or may not think about his personality, I mean, the policies have been absolutely dynamite. It shows what happens when you give business a chance to flourish, cut back on regulations, cut back on taxes, and for cutting taxes for ordinary citizens as well. So we're the beneficiary of that. Pennsylvania has not benefited as much as the rest of the nation. We're still lagging way behind. If we were tracking with the rest of the nation, that surplus would be even bigger. Our job situation would be even better. But as I think a lot of people know, when you have a really great year like this, you don't rush out and spend all that money. This is the time to put money aside into the rainy day, or better yet, pay down debt. Because keep in mind, the rainy day fund, we can turn around and spend that next year. So what I really wanted to see us do was put, instead of $300 million, which they're projecting to go into rainy day, that number could easily, if we tied it into TABOR, which we were talking about earlier, that number would be, there'd be another $600 or $700 million on top of that. We could be putting nearly $1 billion into rainy day, or as I said, paying down debt. And you get into that kind of number, somewhere around $1.5 billion or so, then we start to improve our credit rating as a state. We start to protect against, protect our solvency if we go into a downturn. We're still in serious trouble if we go into a deep recession. I don't think that's going to happen, but it's going to happen eventually. We're putting away $300 million, which is less than 1% of that total. I don't think that's nearly enough in a great year like we're having here. This is the year where we should be putting some money aside and paying down debt, in my opinion.
In recent weeks, Governor Wolf, another aspect of this budget is EITC. Governor Wolf vetoed a very big EITC bill. Can you briefly explain what EITC is? And money was put in this, or is being put in this budget for EITC, right, but again, could have been more.
That was another one of the big reasons I had to vote no. I had to vote my conscience, I had to vote with my district. So we just passed House Bill 800 a couple weeks ago, which would have increased EITC, which is a tax credit for people that are making donations to non-public schools. I actually spoke on the floor in support of it. And the House passed, and the Senate did as well, a $100 million increase in EITC. Again, this is a tax credit to allow us to educate students who want to go to a non-public school at a fraction, about a tenth of the cost that it costs to go to public school. Was very disappointed when the governor vetoed that. This budget includes $25 million. If we could have gotten that to 50 or 60 million, something reasonable, I may well have been a yes, but there was no give on that either. So that was probably, certainly one of my top 3 or 4 reasons for voting no.
Finally, and again, there are so many pieces to this budget package of bills and different moving parts, but I want to talk about our support for our colleges. Penn State, Pitt, what are referred to as the non-preferreds, and also the state schools, which again, you think we could have done better.
Yeah, we did an across-the-board 2% increase on state universities. Here's the problem with that. They've done very little to make themselves more efficient. Enrollment is down over 20% off its peak, yet we continue to give more money, state taxpayer dollars, and now, on average, believe it or not, I was surprised to learn this a month or two ago, our private schools, the average tuition is actually slightly lower than the state schools. Not the published price, but what students ultimately pay through grants and so forth, or I should say different funds that those colleges have, endowments and so forth. And yet that comes at about a third to a half of the cost to taxpayers. So here we are, and we're not, we threw some money at career and technical education, but the state schools and the affiliates have a 50% graduation rate. So 50% of the kids that we're sending there aren't graduating at all. They come out with nothing but debt. They're not, in many instances, coming out with the degrees that we actually need. That's why you see so many of them that don't find a job in their career field, or they have to leave the state to find a job. Why are we throwing more money at that? Again, enrollment's down. We should be having more accountability, some consolidation, having them reinvent themselves a little bit, some more associate programs, more Thaddeus Stevens type schools. I was glad to see we increased funding there.
And Penn Tech.
And Penn Tech also. You're exactly right. So I do applaud that. There's a lot to like in the budget. There's like I said, there's a lot of bad things that we kept out of it.
And that's every budget, but you're saying the weight of those negatives just was too hard to say yes to.
Yeah, mainly at the end of the day, it really comes down to just spending way more money than we needed to spend. So.
Thanks, Representative. If you have questions about this or any state government issue, Representative Jones' contact information will be on the screen in a few seconds. I'm Scott Little, and this has been Legislative Report with your State Representative Mike Jones.